I have here Ed O'Malley from Velovetta. We're going to talk about fast cycling shoes today. Super pumped.
Yeah, me too.
I've never had a formal way to kick off a podcast, so welcome to the show, man.
Thanks
for being here.
Yeah, I'm super happy to be invited here.
Awesome. Yeah, of course. It's my pleasure. Before we started recording, I was telling you how I learned about Velovetta, and I was telling you that I knew about you because, again, Boulder is such a small town, and even though, you don't necessarily know people in person, I knew who your coach was, Eric Kenny, and some of your teammates from the triathlon team that you are training with. And so basically I learned about your company because one day I saw Eric posting a video on his Instagram page. He was sharing a video from you, and it was this video where he, I think you're showing a bunch of pieces and parts for a prototype, and I was like, what's that? And then I go to the profile of your brand, Velovetta, and I was like, wow, this looks interesting. Go to your website, and then I learned about what, this is all about. So this is a new, would you say new brand? It's still still in developing process, right?
Oh, sure. Yeah, we haven't released the product yet. We hope to release it in the fall, but that's pretty ambitious.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a new brand, a new product for an aerodynamic cycling shoe.
Nice. Yeah. When I saw it, I was like, for some reason I thought, maybe I'm wrong, but I thought of, it reminded me of the Vaporfly's 4%, kind of like the principle of what Nike's trying to do, help people to, improve their performance. But
yeah, I think that's an apt analogy because they really did a genuine scientific effort to try and figure out how to make a shoe demonstrably faster. And I'm doing the same thing with a cycling shoe. A few other companies have tried to make a aero cycling shoe by saying, oh, well, we'll just put the BOA on the back, or we're going to make it with laces, or we're going to try to make the shape that we think should be aero. But no one's done a real scientific analytical process to know that they're making a faster shoe, and I believe we're the first to do that.
That's what I think is so super interesting because I think about bigger companies, right, that have access to resources, wind tunnels, all kinds of things. And I don't know, for instance, I think about a company like Specialized. I haven't seen a shoe that has those kinds of, features or advantages. And it makes me think of people like you who are entrepreneurs who are focusing on very specific niches, right? I think about Matt Steinmetz, for instance, who, he used his skills and background and to create something very specific that is taking off. So that's really exciting. And everything in Boulder. Boulder is like the mecca of those things.
Yeah,
So.
all happening in Boulder. Yeah, I know a lot of people in Boulder doing really interesting stuff. It's an exciting time to be on, not just for sports, but for entrepreneurship.
Yeah,
too.
for sure. That was one of the reasons that drove us to move here 6 years ago. But before we talk about Velovetta, we were talking about you are doing Ironman St. George 70.3 this weekend, right?
I am.
So when are you heading there?
Leaving early tomorrow morning, driving down with my team, Boulder Racing and also Vixen Racing. It's kind of an early tradition now, second year in a row for us all to go down there together, stay in a couple condos together,
Cool.
race together, and it's sort of a big season kickoff. Our push is to do really well in the team competition this year.
Oh, I see.
And it's just a lot of fun to go to a big race that's really competitive with a lot of your friends and just throw down and race hard. So
Right. Are there several teams that go there as well, that compete as team as well?
Yeah, so there's a club competition, and so all the members of triathlon clubs, all the clubs that are racing in there compete for the club spot, and they changed the rules. It used to be really advantageous for you to have the most members possible within your club category competing, and so that if you had up to the limit of competitors competing for your category, that really gave you an advantage. And now I think it's just the top 5 or top 7 for your club count, and so that makes it much more even across clubs to compete evenly together, and I think that should help us out this year.
Right. And so have you done St. George before? I've heard of the course is pretty challenging, right?
Yeah, last year was my first time, and it is a challenging course, but it's definitely one of my very favorite 70.3s I've ever done, if not my favorite. It's It's beautiful. It's challenging, which means you have to really understand the course and have a race strategy ahead of time, which is more interesting than just I'm going to hold this power flat the whole time, and then I'm going to race at this effort on the run flat the whole time. That's not super interesting. So, and then also because it's a North American Championship and there's more World Championship slots and that kind of thing, there's more. I'd say the competition is a little bit stiffer there, and so it just makes it feel like a big deal.
Yeah, it seems like races like that one, or even Ironman Texas last weekend, right? It seems like it's become a big one of the biggest races in the country, at least.
Yeah. I mean, I raced Ironman Texas 2 years ago.
Oh yeah,
and really the depth of the age group field was really impressive. I think in my age group in 40 to 44, if you did a 940, you were in 26th place in the age group or something. It was pretty deep.
Why do you think it's become Ironman Texas so popular? Is it because the slots that are given for the Hawaii or the venue, or never done it? So is it a flat course or flatter?
It's pretty flat. Yeah,
Okay.
the run is very flat, very fast. The bike course on the Hardy Toll Road is pretty flat and can be pretty fast. It used to be short, so therefore it was guaranteed to be fast. Now it's the right length. But I do think that it's the slots that make it popular, but I think that it's almost the reverse, because so many guys who are able to qualify for Kona say, I'll just go there because my age group is going to have 10 slots instead of 4.
Yeah.
That it actually ends up being harder to qualify because there's so many fast people.
Right. How is it to swim in the, what do you call that place, the Barton's Pool, the place where the swim?
I forget the name of the lake.
You enjoyed swimming there?
Yeah, it was fine.
Yeah, it's like a big pool.
It was not wetsuit legal.
Okay.
But it was fine.
Okay.
It actually, in the last bit of it is in a canal, which I thought was kind of fun. I could actually see, spectators lining the canal as I was swimming and on the bridges. And usually you don't get that in a swim.
For real, especially, cheering you on. That would be kind of cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. I can imagine your coach, Eric, like, hurry. But before we talk about Velovetta more, we'd love to learn more about your background. So where do you grow up? East Coast?
I grew up in San Antonio, Texas.
Oh,
actually. Yeah.
No way.
Uh-huh.
Okay. And now I was doing my research. I read that in college you're a mechanical engineer, and then also you got your MBA. So it's a combination of engineering and business. So mechanical engineer, I'm an industrial engineer. So when I think about mechanical, I think about, gosh, you just have to have a lot of curiosity for how things work, right? So
yeah, I think that's true for any engineering field.
Right. Well, it's funny because for me as an industrial engineer, I was curious, but I always knew that I was not necessarily going to focus on the operations part of I guess the career. I was always interested in business and marketing, so I ended up going to get my bachelor's in industrial engineering, thinking, okay, I'm going to learn about this and then I'm going to decide what to do, because like you learn all kinds of accounting and physics and chemistry and marketing and finance too. It's kind of interesting. But what made you decide to choose that path, mechanical engineering?
Probably space camp when I was a little kid. Yeah,
nice.
I went to space camp and just I loved all the little technical features and learning about the technical stuff about the space shuttle and all that kind of stuff. And I just had such a great time. And I came home and I immediately tried to start designing airplanes and stuff. And I remember I made my mom take me to the local university library, and I checked out a book on fluid mechanics, and I didn't understand a single word in it. I was trying to calculate the lift for my airplane design, and I was 12 years old or whatever, and I didn't get it. But I knew that I loved engineering from that point on, and so my whole goal was to become an aerospace engineer. And so I went to college and studied mechanical engineering, and then worked as an aerospace engineer for a while after that.
Right. That's what I was going to say. What did you do? What was your first job post-college? I think you went to work for a company where you had the opportunity to work for NASA and the...
Yeah, we were a contractor to NASA. The company I worked for was called Futron, which is an interesting name. But they were a great company, small company, and my job was to analyze the detailed design of the International Space Station and create sort of a statistical model of it that would predict the likelihood of things failing and enough things failing leading to certain really terrible end states like the entire loss of the station or the death of an astronaut or penetration by a micrometeorite, that kind of thing. And then the other thing we could use it for was if there was a problem on orbit, our model would allow you to say, okay, well, the most likely thing to be causing this problem is this part. The second most likely thing is this part. And so it would enable us to, troubleshoot problems on orbit a lot more quickly than if you just tried to do it on your own.
Wow. It's a great experience, I assume.
Oh, it was a lot of fun.
Yeah,
for sure.
Of course. And then after you're done working at Foodtron, you started your own company. Is that right?
So at first I went to business school, and then
Got it.
And then I started a company with 3 other guys out in Nevada, manufacturing auxiliary power units for long haul trucks.
Okay. How was your experience going to Babson, Holland?
Oh, it was great.
Yeah?
Yeah. So I knew that entrepreneurship was what I wanted to focus on, and that's what their specialty is. And all the other students there were focused on the same thing. And there's just something about people that want to create their own thing, be in charge of their own destiny, that creates a lot of energy and excitement. And so that community was full of that. And,
Nice.
and it was great.
Nice. So you knew that you wanted to start your own company?
For sure, yeah.
Even before going to business school?
Yeah.
That's cool. That's nice. So you went to MBA, you finished your MBA, and that's when you started Motivengine after finishing business school?
It took several years. So the first company I started was BlackRock Systems.
Yeah, of course.
And,
right.
and then worked with that for 5 or 6 years, something like that. And then I left that company, and then in a long, strange story, an investor from that company asked me if I wanted to get involved in a technology that was spun out of Caterpillar and donated to Kansas State University for a new kind of engine. And after meeting with Kansas State and getting the inventor of that engine to agree to come on board, I started a new company to take that technology and commercialize it.
Right. And so what does Motivengine does?
So
or what technology is used?
It's a technology for a new kind of engine that is dramatically more efficient than a conventional engine. It's smaller and lighter, and it's less expensive to manufacture.
And is that technology used for, like, I think I read on their website that is it mostly focused on like the trucking industry, big trucks, or other applications?
Really, so it's still in development, and my personal favorite potential applications for it are in power generation, long haul trucking, and marine applications for boats. But really, it can be used anywhere, which is a blessing and a curse, because we need to focus in some direction, but it's hard to purposefully sort of limit your horizon when you know you could be great everywhere.
Yeah, right. It's interesting because I was just thinking, I was watching a podcast the other day, Joe Rogan interviewing Andrew Yang, one of the Democratic candidates, and one of, I guess, the main things of his pitch is the trucking industry. He says that, I don't know, the trucks are going to be self-drive or driven, I guess, in the next 10 to 20 years. So, and I think everything is going electric, or I don't know if everything, but he's kind of like talking about that, and it was interesting because his point is basically that truck drivers are just gonna, they're not gonna have jobs anymore, and that's gonna impact the industry a lot. And I was just wondering, what are your thoughts on how, I guess, the industry is evolving? You see not all things, but like electric cars are becoming more popular, things like that. How do you see yourself competing with that type of industry in the future, or like electric?
I think that different technologies have different applications that they're best at, and electric drivetrains are definitely great for certain kinds of applications. long haul trucking is a more difficult application for electric drivetrains, but I think that it will find a space in trucking. And it will be better than the trucks that are today. But I think that for a lot, especially for longer haul routes, it's going to be quite a while before the technology can really compete. And so the question is, how do we make long haul trucking more efficient? How do we use less fuel? How do we create fewer emissions with a technology that can actually do it today? And I believe that our technology is called the Clark-Brayton engine, and I believe that engine is the one that can do it.
Got it. I just can't wait to talk about Velovetta. So how do you come up with that idea? Just walk us through, how do you think of it?
Yeah. So I'd had lunch with a friend of mine, Jonah, who'd had an idea for this really high-tech ski mountaineering racing boot.
Oh, nice.
And he's not an engineer, and he was wondering if maybe I could help him out with it. And I said, man, I don't know anything about shoes or how to make shoes or how to make the right shape. And I'm just not sure that I have the skill set to help you out. So I'm sorry. And but then I couldn't stop thinking about how to make shoes or what's the right shape for a shoe. It just got my brain turning. And then, of course, since I'm a triathlete, it switched to cycling shoes, and I started thinking about that, and it just sort of dawned on me that lots of people are asking the question, hey, what's the most aerodynamic shoe? Or they're modifying existing shoes to try and make them more aerodynamic, and they're actually spending money to test different shoes in the tunnel to find out which shoe just happens to be more aerodynamic. So it seemed obvious to me that there is demand for a more aerodynamic cycling shoe, but nobody was really meeting that demand. Right. Just taking off the boas and slapping on some laces and saying this is an aerodynamic shoe didn't seem like a real solution to me. And I thought, I have the skill set to solve this problem. And maybe I don't know how to make shoes, but I know how to make a shoe shape more aerodynamic, and I can learn how to make shoes. And so that's kind of how it started. I just started playing around with designs and running some models on my computer, and pretty quick I realized, I can make a shoe significantly faster, and just decided to go with it.
So you started, I assume you bought several shoes and started testing them, and then you created your own concept. What kind of methodology or technology or do you use to measure success, I guess?
So
I mean,
through design iterations, the technical measures of success is using computational fluid dynamics simulations to calculate the drag of a shoe and to get that number as low as possible.
So that's the main goal, reduce drag.
That is a main goal.
Okay.
But the other main goal is to make it a really great cycling shoe. And so especially for triathlon, you have some unusual requirements for a cycling shoe. It needs to be really easy and fast to get into, to have a fast transition, and a lot of straight up cycling shoes are not.
Right.
It needs to be comfortable. It needs to have a really good fit. And so if we're really, really low drag, but we don't do those other things well, it's not going to be successful. So it has to be a really, really great shoe also. And so the mechanism was also designed to be the fastest transition shoe possible, the most comfortable shoe possible, and then the most aerodynamic shoe on top of that.
Nice. Interesting. Again, reminded me to what Matt was saying, that his products, a lot of people think that his products are made for you to be, of course, super air and super fast, but yes, it is. But you also want to be comfortable, because you're gonna be doing when you're doing an Ironman or half Ironman, you're gonna be several hours doing your thing, and you just want to be super aero, but also comfortable, right?
Yeah.
So got it, cool. And when you came out with the idea, what was next? Like, did you decide to start asking people on forums like the Slow Twitch website or other websites, or your friends? How did that go?
Yeah, so I started out with a post on the Slow Twitch forum, just with an initial concept that I had, and I just wanted to get some confirmation. Hey, yes, this is something we would be interested, or no, that's crazy. I'm happy with my shoes, and so I posted, one of my earlier designs and some of the early CFD results that I had, and the response was, I think 100% positive. I don't think one person said,
they were
I'm
all
not
good.
interested in that. It was 100% positive, and so that was really encouraging to me.
Yeah.
And I think that response was what led me to say, okay, I'm actually going to do this. I'm not going to just play around with it.
So Slow Twitch, for people who are not familiar, is a very popular triathlon website. Has all kinds of articles, I guess, on product reviews, interviews, but also a very active forum. Would you say?
Yeah, that's true. It's I believe maybe by far the most active triathlon focused forum, and I did a similar post on the time trialing forum.
I was going to ask you if you also tried other websites, would you just were focusing on triathlon related websites or also cycling as well?
Yeah, so I wanted to see if because in some cases, especially this initial version of the shoe may or may not end up being deemed illegal by the UCI. And for triathlon, that's fine. But I wanted to know if cyclists, in particular time trial cyclists, would still be interested in the shoe. So I went over to the time trialing forum and said, hey, I'm designing the shoe. If it turns out not to be UCI legal, are you still guys interested? And for the most part, they said yes as well. And it turns out, most cycling racing around the world, the UCI regulations are not are not something they need to worry about. It's only particular races that are U.S. nationals or something that'll qualify you for world championships and that kind of stuff. You need to worry about UCI regulations. But for a local time trial or for a lot of the time trialing racing that happens in the UK, the UCI regs are not something they need to worry about. And so that was also great. It said, okay, this can also be a cycling shoe, not just a triathlon shoe.
Nice. That's good. I mean, bigger market.
Yeah.
For sure. And I remember you were saying that when you first started asking people on the forum, you shared some photos. I think the shoe said on the shoe it said Peregrine. Was that the original brand or the original name of the model of the shoe?
Yeah, so I hadn't started a company yet, but that was my favored name at the time. And as it came time to actually start a company, and doing some trademark searches and that kind of thing, it became clear that I might run into some trouble if I use that name. So I had to come up with a new name that no one was going to sue me over. So.
Yeah, totally. I mean, that's one of the reasons why I decided to. I used to have a brand called Dig Deep, and so I could not trademark that thing because it's such a popular, I guess, common word. The trademark was owned by a bigger company. Yeah. And so I was like, okay, I need to make a decision and came up with this other name. But for instance, I personally like Velovetta more just because it's a word that doesn't really exist. So, yes, maybe there's some, at least for me, like challenges at the beginning where I'd need to educate my listeners or people about what Chassis is, a little education, but it's a really unique name. So
yeah, thank you.
Yeah, this is awesome. And so talk about the origin. How did you come up with the name and also your logo? It's pretty cool. I like it.
Yeah, so the logo I came up with back when it was going to be Peregrine, and so it was just sort of a simplified, stylized outline of a peregrine falcon in a dive.
Oh, okay.
And that's where that came from, and my wife helped me a little bit with it. And she came with the idea of having the mountain silhouette kind of integrated into the bird's wings.
Yeah.
And so when I had to change the name, I really loved the logo, and so I just decided to keep the bird as our symbol, as our logo, and the name Velovetta is sort of a mashup. It could mean a few different things. Velo, obviously from the French word for cycling, or from the Italian for fast, my Italian pronunciation is terrible, but velocite.
Okay.
For fast, and then Vetta is Italian for peak.
Oh, I see.
So it could mean peak speed, or it could mean peak cycling,
okay,
or that kind of thing. pick whichever you like.
And Velo means, because I see those hashtags used when people post time trial bikes or cycling bikes on Instagram or all things cycling. What does Velo means? Is it
Cycling.
speed?
For French, from the French for cycle.
As you can see, my French does not exist. So, okay, you came up with the logo, the brand. What was next after getting, good feedback or, interesting feedback from people? I guess developing a prototype.
Yeah. So I kind of cut apart a Giro shoe and 3D printed some parts and bolted it together.
Yeah.
And it was pretty ugly, but it was kind of gave me proof that it's going to work. Like, I'll be able to get my foot in it, and this unusual buckle mechanism I came up with will actually work. I had some people, actually do some test transitions on it to see how they thought. I had Rob Gray, do some flying mounts on it and get his feet in it and see how he liked it, and it seemed to work pretty well. But there were a couple issues with that first prototype that made the transitions difficult. So that informed some other design changes, particularly to keep, when you stuff your foot in there to keep your foot from getting stuck between the actual top of the shoe and the closure panel. You need your foot to just go straight into the shoe. So we made some changes to make sure that was going to happen, stuff like that. So we learned a lot from that first prototype.
Right. And did you also, when you created that prototype, did you also test it with your modeling, your computer, or was that just a way to create a physical?
It was really just I didn't scan that shoe in. I just kind of measured it and tried to model some parts to fit and printed them up, and they didn't fit perfectly well. Like, it would have done terribly in the wind tunnel. So I didn't bother testing it in the wind tunnel. The first shoe that we are going to test in the wind tunnel will be completed in 3 or 4 weeks from now.
Oh, nice. And it's funny. I was reading some of the, responses from people on Slow Twitch. A lot of people want white shoes.
Yeah.
And they also make a comment about speed play pedals versus. I'm not very I know what the speed play pedals are, how they look like, but how different are they from your typical Shimano pedal? Is there a big difference in structure or?
Yeah. So the speed play, the pedals themselves just look like little lollipops.
Right.
Sorta. They're like little discs, and they have a particular version that is designed to be aerodynamic, and the other thing is all versions of speed play pedals typically have a lower stack height than Shimano or Look pedals, and so they stick out a little bit less. And testing, I've seen some Velodrome testing numbers for the Aero speed play pedals, and over a typical Shimano or Look pedal, it sounds like they're usually 3 to 5 watts faster. Depending on pedal style and your pedaling style and that kind of thing. And so they're the more aerodynamic choice. And so it seems natural to want to pair those for people who are really concerned with aerodynamics, who our customers are going to be. Yeah. They're likely to be speed play users, but not everybody's a speed play user. And a lot of people are interested in this sort of native speed play 4-hole pattern on the bottom of the shoe sole. But if you do that, then you can't use it with a Shimano or a Look pedal. If you have the normal 3-hole pattern, there's an adapter that you can use to still use speed plays. It adds a tiny bit of stack, and there's some hardcore guys out there that really, really, really don't want to have that extra stack. But when you look at the shape of the 4-hole soles, I actually don't think you get an aero benefit from doing that over just using the adapter. And using the 3-hole pattern allows anybody to use any pedal they want. Got it. And so that's what we're sticking with.
Nice. I also remember reading in the forum that I think you said you went to Europe to take a look at. I think you went to Italy and maybe
Italy and Spain. Yeah.
And that was to just basically to learn about what sourcing opportunities or designers.
It was to pick a factory.
Oh,
Yeah,
nice.
yeah. So we had decided that we weren't going to go to Asia.
Yeah, that's what I was just wondering. Okay, nice.
And so we found a few factories, really two that we were seriously considering, one in Spain and one in Italy.
Mm-hmm.
And so we just went to go visit and make a final decision as to where we wanted to make the shoes. And we ended up choosing the factory in Italy. And they're working on the first article now. So using those parts that you saw in the video that Eric shared, they're making the actual shoe, and then those parts are going to be attached to it, and that's the shoe we're going to take to the wind tunnel.
So Asia, China is not an option. I'm just curious because
there's a lot of upheaval going on right now with the trade war and the tariffs and all this kind of stuff, and a lot of the shoe business that could be moved is being moved to Vietnam. It's difficult to start new business in China right now because of the trade war. The Vietnamese factories are ramping up really fast. They're getting more business than they can handle from everybody that's running away from China, and they didn't really have the technical expertise needed to make the shoe. And then on top of that, I really needed a factory that was going to be interactive with me a little bit and help solve some problems. With the large Asian factories, you send them your tech pack and they make the shoe exactly as you tell them to make it.
Yeah.
But I needed sort of a more interactive process to figure out how we're going to make this shoe, because no one's made a shoe like this before. And I needed somebody with that manufacturing experience to say, we shouldn't do it that way. We should do it this way.
Yeah.
And so with these more artisan type handmade factories with an owner that is willing to think through problems and come up with the best solution, that's really what we needed. So that's why we went to Europe.
Makes sense. I mean, when you think about cycling legacy, right? Italy, Spain, for sure. It's like here that we're at the Boulder Running Company. Like La Sportiva is known for, climbing shoes and also all things running shoes. But man, they're so narrow. I have a super wide feet, so I'm like, I need a really wide shoe type of customer. Which is funny how like the criteria that we all used to buy cycling shoes. For me, the last triathlon pair of cycling shoes that I bought were. Okay, I used to have a pair of Lugard that worked well for me, and I went to competitive cyclist, and I saw a pair that looked the same, a good deal, and I bought them, and I can wear them, but like if I wear them for 4 or 5 hours, it hurts.
Yeah.
I mean, so, and I didn't really know much about like other brands that they also, I guess, make shoes that are wider. So is that relatively common, like cycling companies that make shoes that are wider?
Yeah. I mean, brands are known to have a certain kind of fit, and a lot of the Italian brands are known to be narrow. And part of it is that's the Italian aesthetic. They think it looks good.
Totally.
And so they're going to make the narrow shoe.
Totally.
Whereas, a company like Bont is known for making wide shoes, or Lake is known for making wide shoes.
CD as well, I think.
CD is Italian, and typically you'd expect those to be narrower.
Oh, okay. And Bont is, where is it?
Australian.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it's funny when you talk about European aesthetics. Yeah, the same thing. Like Solomon, French company, they make awesome shoes, but they're like so narrow. I'm like, I can't put these guys on. What's been the biggest challenge so far they've had with Velovetta? And what do you think will be, I don't know, the biggest one, moving forward?
Well, the biggest challenge was getting to manufacturing and learning how to make shoes, and then finding factories, contacting factories in a way that they take you seriously. I started out just doing it on my own, and I went on Alibaba and randomly sending messages to Chinese shoe manufacturing companies. And they would get back to me and say, yes, we'd love to make shoes for you. Here's our catalog of shoes. Pick a shoe and send us your logo, and we'll put your logo on the shoe, and we'll make as many as you want. I was like, no. That's not what I want. I need you to make this shoe. And they said, oh, well, we don't have the parts for that shoe, so you should just make one of our shoes. And I said, oh, I don't want to make your running shoes. I want to make this shoe. They're like, oh, well, then you're going to have to pay $25,000 per mold, per part, per shoe, per size. And I'm like, oh my God. And it just didn't sound right. And so I knew I needed some help. And so I ended up getting a guy who used to run footwear for Pro Zumi for 12 years to come on as a consultant and help me out and let me know what I should be expecting for that kind of stuff and what factories to contact. And he's been really helpful in getting me from having no knowledge about shoe manufacturing to getting pretty ready to release a shoe. So.
Yeah, I personally had bad experiences with Alibaba. I found that, like you were saying, if you don't have somebody who directs you to the right person or right places or a broker, we used to work in a previous business. We used to have a broker who would deal with our Chinese contacts because just dealing with Alibaba by yourself, it's pretty sketchy.
Yeah, yeah,
and overwhelming. So yeah, I hear you. And what about thinking, ahead? Biggest challenge, would you say, like, for Velovetta, launching it or the sourcing?
I mean, I think there's two things that we need to be really good at. One is marketing and sales, and we're a brand new company. Very few people know who we are. How do we get somebody to decide to buy a Velovetta shoe from some company they've never heard of before instead of a specialized shoe that they know and trust? So that's going to be difficult. And then we're a very small company, but people will expect the same level of customer service and support that they get from the big companies. And so we really have to execute well on providing great customer service, even though we're a tiny company.
Yeah. That makes completely sense. But I'll tell you, like, I saw your product and I'm like, this is awesome. I love it because it's super niche focused. And when I read all the comments in Slow Twitch, you like you were saying, yeah, there's market for it. Yeah, maybe it's going to be smaller market initially. But it's funny. I thought it was interesting. People were like, were asking about the price, and I think one person said, I think it's going to be like around $800. And
yeah,
like, no, that's not going to be like that. And it's funny because forums can be hard, right? Like when I was reading it, I was like, oh man, are they going to be all these haters? And I think there was only one person who was like, you're not going to get that amount of drag reduction that you're looking for. And I love your comment. You're like, haha, thanks for the, what do you say for believing in us or something like that.
Yeah,
that is so nice for you. I would have been like,
I don't remember exactly what I said, but I do remember the comment. And that same guy is on the Time Trialing forum, and he's actually been pretty great. And people should be skeptical, and I'm glad that he's skeptical. And the proof is in the pudding, and I think people will, once they get their shoes in hand. I can't wait for people to start doing their own field testing. There's some great field testing tools out there now, and I would love for people to do reports on their own field testing on the shoes. I think that would be great for us.
Is that part of the plan before you launch it mainstream, like to have people test the shoes, give you feedback, or?
We will definitely have people testing the shoes and giving us feedback. I don't know if we're going to do like any sort of like widespread, like give out 100 pairs of shoes first or anything like that,
Right.
But getting feedback has definitely been something we've been doing along the way as we've been developing the last for the shoe, to define the fit. We get test shoes made. And I always end up, I've been doing all my test shoes in size 44, so I get everybody that I know who's a size 44 to try them on and tell me what they think.
Is that the most common cycling shoe size, would you say?
I don't know. It's my size. And so the typical size to develop a shoe is 43. All samples are always 43, but I wanted to be able to try it myself.
Yeah.
And so I did all mine at 44.
And I think, that's the right size, because I think about the running shoe category is usually between, at least for men, 9.5 to 11.
Mhm.
So there you go.
Yeah.
44 is what?
It's like 10 and a half.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you're in the right ballpark. We didn't talk about how did you get into triathlons. Because before doing triathlon, you used to row in college. Row crew.
Yep.
Perfect. Talk more about that. Like how do you like that experience while you were in college, and how did you discover triathlon?
Yeah. So I started rowing in college, and it was a really great experience for me. It was really my first experience in endurance sports, although much shorter than triathlon. And that's actually how I ended up meeting Eric Kinney, who's now my coach. Is right after college, I rowed for the U.S. National Development Team in Boston, and he was on that team as well. And that's where I originally met Eric. And then I did my first triathlon in, I want to say it was 2010.
Okay.
In New York City, or outside. The triathlon was in Connecticut. I was living in New York City, and a buddy of mine who is a ridiculous swimmer, Olympic trials swimmer,
Nice.
said, I've entered this triathlon. You should do it with me. We both had road bikes. I was like, yeah, sure. That sounds like fun. And so I went and raced that with him, and I had a great time. And it was really hard. It was just a short, not even a sprint. I only had a 10-mile bike or something. I had a great time, but it was really hard. And then I waited a year, and I did it again the next year. And then that year was the year I got hooked. And then all of a sudden I'm doing 5 or 6 races a year, and now like 8 races a year. And I started doing longer and longer races. Right. And so that's kind of how I got hooked into it. And then we moved out to Boulder in 2013, 14. I can't even remember now. And I just noticed on Facebook that this guy I knew back in 1999, who I used to row with, was a triathlon coach in Boulder.
That's awesome.
And so that's how I got hooked back up with Eric.
So for people who listeners are not from Boulder, Eric Kinney is a well-respected, well-known coach, triathlon coach here in Boulder. He coaches 2 teams, Ed's team and also a female triathlon team called the Vixen Racing, right? Yeah, it's pretty cool. You were saying that the first triathlon that you did, you waited the next year, and then after that you got hooked. What made you really embrace, I guess, triathlon after that race? Or what was different from from the first time you did it?
Yeah, I don't know. I had decided, I think, that I wasn't going to be a very serious athlete anymore. I did that when I was younger. And I didn't really, I think I had really decided that wasn't for me anymore, and being tired all the time wasn't for me anymore.
Tired all the time? With rowing?
Yeah.
Dude, really?
Yeah, I mean, rowers train, really hard, just like triathletes do. And
would you say it's more intense, the training?
I mean, you're focused on a race that's more like 6 minutes long, 6 to 7 minutes long instead of hours long. So it's different.
Right.
I would say that the anxiety that I felt before a rowing race because of the pain that I was going to experience was much higher than the anxiety that I feel before a half Ironman or an Ironman. The long triathlons, you're suffering for a very long time, but the intensity of the suffering is pretty low. With the rowing race, the last minute of rowing race is just so excruciating. They're both very hard, and you have to train similar number of hours to reach your peak performance at both, but the training is a bit different.
Right. Now, out of the 3 disciplines, was there one that you liked the best? I wonder, when you did that triathlon the second time, or which is your discipline of choice? Is cycling, I guess.
I started out really enjoying the cycling the most and being the best. That was my best event. I would say now that I enjoy them all equally. Swimming is still my worst. It's just hard to start swimming in your mid-30s and get really good at it.
Yeah,
and
of course.
But my running and cycling, I think, are about equal now.
Do you also feel like Okay, so when you're training for a race, you go to the pool, you do all these workouts, you feel good, you feel strong, you do open water swims, you feel good, but then you go to the race. It's race time, and at least for me personally, like I feel good, but I feel that I'm not I kind of go into survival mode a little bit.
Yeah.
Like, so I'm not as efficient or as good as I know I can be, or as strong.
Particularly in the swim, right?
That's what I was saying.
Yeah.
I'll tell you, 2017, I DNF Boulder, had a bike crash, but talk about bikes, so I can finish it. But during the swim, I was feeling super strong, and 20 seconds into the swim, I got anxious.
Yeah.
And I was so trained to deal with that. I don't have any issues swimming with people. I feel super comfortable, but I'm like, what the hell?
Yeah, I had the same thing. I had probably a full-on panic attack in the swim of my first triathlon. I almost DNF'd, a minute into the race. And I stopped and was treading water, and I saw the safety paddle boarders, and I was saying, I'm going to have to go flag one of those guys down. And I treaded water for a bit and, realized that actually I'm just fine. Everything's fine, and I should just keep going. And then, but even it doesn't need to be that dramatic. Even if you're a pretty experienced racer, Eric was driving this into our head yesterday at swim practice, that in a triathlon swim, there's so many things that can happen to you that take you out of your game and that screw up your swim stroke. And, there's contact, you have to sight, which you don't normally have to do. You have to make these turns around buoys, and all these things will cause you to start swimming terribly, which will cause you to start going really slow or putting out way too much effort. And so every time, okay, now,
yeah, cool.
So yeah, every time something like that happens to you, you have to really consciously think, okay, get my stroke back. Remember about your body position. Remember about finishing your stroke if that's your thing, or remember about, initiating your stroke, probably whatever it is that you typically need to work on. Start thinking about that again and just swimming long and easy. So every time you get bumped, or after every turn, or after you've been sighting for a while, you just have to consciously try to get yourself back into that good place. Even when you're really experienced, you still need to do that. So.
Yeah. That's never easy. So have you you've done Ironman before? What's the calendar of races for you for the rest of the year?
This year, I'm not doing a ton of racing and no Ironman this year, just because I'm worried that with the shoe, I'm not going to be able to train well enough to be happy with an Ironman performance. So starting with St. George, and then I'm going to do as many of the local Without Limits series races as possible, starting with the Colorado Tri and Boulder Peak and all those great races, and then finishing off the season in Nice at the 70.3 World Championships in September.
Nice. When did you qualify for?
I qualified last August at the Boulder 70.3.
Oh, that's awesome. So you're going with Jet?
Yeah,
huh?
yeah. Jet just got his slot a couple weeks ago.
That is so cool. I love it. Sounds like it's gonna be a fun race.
Yeah, right now we got 3 guys from the team heading out there.
Oh,
so
really? Nice. Now, let me ask you this: for people who, let's say, are starting to get into cycling or triathlon, and they have to think about buying all kinds of things, bikes and apparel and shoes, like cycling shoes. What would you say? Any kind of recommendations they have for them? What are the things that they should look into or look for to find a good, decent, not necessarily the most expensive one, but a good starter?
Yeah, I mean, if you're going to do your first triathlon and you already have a road bike and shoes, like I would say, don't buy anything special until you've done a couple of races. Even if you're on a hybrid bike or whatever, just get out there and ride whatever you have. It doesn't matter. And run, and running shoes, everybody has something. So don't go and spend thousands of dollars until you've done a couple of races. And then once you've done that and this is going to be your thing, then yeah, go look into getting a real triathlon bike. And there's a wide range, and people's budgets are going to be different. You don't need to have the top end tri bike. A bottom end tri bike really is going to get you to the finish line almost as fast. The most important thing is to as I'm sure Matt Steinmetz told you in your podcast with him, is to make sure it fits right. And so you need to find a really good store that has a good fitter and that knows how to fit a tri bike and knows how to select the right bike for you to get their help. Or if you're willing to filter through the advice on Slow Twitch, you can make a post on Slow Twitch, and some people there will give you world-class advice, and then some other will not. So,
do you have any race day rituals?
Not really.
Yeah. Like,
you know, I don't think so. Other than just getting up and doing what I need to do, I don't have anything. Yeah.
What do you usually have for breakfast? Like,
even that can vary, but usually like it'll be oatmeal and maybe half a bagel.
I always do that too. Half. And one bagel is too much.
I can't eat very much. I usually can't eat much the morning of a race.
Of course.
And so maybe it may be a banana. And then I'll try and get down, a bottle of my electrolyte sports drink, just to make sure I'm well hydrated before the race starts. And that's about it, really.
Right. Now you work with all kinds of technologies and softwares and applications. Is there one technology as a user that's getting you excited these days? I mean, in general, not necessarily for cycling or endurance sports, but
any kind of technology that gets me excited.
Yeah, like, are you using any particular app these days, or any, I don't know, new toy or device that you bought for your house?
So
or
I guess there is one. My wife got it for me for my birthday, a drone, a photography drone.
Dude, that's awesome.
That I really am amazed at how good the flight software and sensors are in it. It literally does fly itself. You can program it to follow you or to do all sorts of stuff, and it's so easy to fly.
Yeah,
it takes great photos. It's really interesting to get that aerial perspective, and I send it on little missions around my house to fly around the mountains where I live. And it's a ton of fun. So I guess that's, in terms of technology that's new to me that I'm having a lot of fun with, that's it.
Yeah, nice. Drone. So do you have do you have a joystick, or is it one? Okay.
Yeah, so it has a little joystick. Your phone attaches to the joystick, and it uses the screen on your phone for you to see what the drone sees. And it has two joysticks, and you can just fly it around yourself if you want, or you can say, okay, follow me, or fly to the side of me, and it just keeps you in focus, and wherever you go, it goes.
Nice.
It can be it's sort of like having a Terminator follow you around. It can be a little intimidating, but man, it's a lot of fun.
Nice. Dude, this is awesome. I'm really excited about what you're doing with Velovetta. So for people, if they want to keep following your journey and building, this business and the shoes, of course, where can they find you online, social media?
So our website is velovetta.com, velovetta.com. And then on Instagram, I think we're just at Velovetta. And we have a Facebook page as well that I think you just search Velovetta, you'll find us. And that's where all the new information is coming out.
Right. And I guess if you're a Slow Twitch,
slow Twitch. Every once in a while, I'll throw an update in there.
What's your username?
Row to Try.
That's got a cool one. Row to Try. Awesome. Thanks, Ed. Thanks for being on the show.
Yeah, it was a pleasure. Thanks a lot for having me.
Of course, my pleasure. Thanks, man.